I was going to introduce our next guest by saying it's taken eons to actually get her on the show. That would sound rather cliched because she works for EON. So I'm very pleased to introduce Teresa Rose. She's the learning and talent expert for the energy company EON, based in their offices in Nottingham.
Yes.
The company is headquartered in Coventry.
Yes.
So, Teresa, just tell me, what does a talent and learning expert do in the company?
Well, I'm the talent specialist in terms of the L&D offer that I provide.
Okay, so you're the talent element of L&D.
I am, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, so for all of our talent areas which are growing, so it's a key priority for the business with the changing industry that we're in.
Yes.
So we're looking at bringing in different people and how we develop them.
Yes.
Particularly in our business to business area as well.
So give me some examples of how you've made a difference to the L&D operation with your talent hat on.
I think it's equipping the people that are leading those talent pools as well to be able to curate content, to deliver surgeries and things like that, rather than it being L&D, doing too much hand-holding or delivering courses, giving them the knowledge and empowering them to do the work themselves, because there's only me.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm limited in my capacity. There's more.
But you're not limited. If you just facilitate and enable,
Yes.
you're unlimited capacity.
Yes.
So that's the impact that you make. You're focusing on helping people help themselves, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
And build their careers and are you part of recruitment as well? Does that come into it?
Sometimes involved in assessment centres.
Right, okay.
But not directly recruiting, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's once they're in, you take over in a way.
Yes,
you help them.
yes.
And your job is to basically aid retention and keep people developing, learning.
And develop people through the pool. So look at how we bridge from one level to another.
Yes.
And really offering more of a self-directed, blended, extended blend solution. So where we do have anything that's more formal is what happens before and after those events.
Sure. So do you use data? Do you analyse? Do you profile? And if you do use data, tell us a little bit about how you use it and what it's telling you.
I worked for the last 3 years in our group learning function in Essen in Germany.
Right.
And as an organisation, we use design thinking extensively to find out what our customers want, and we use customer immersion sessions. And I was thinking, we don't really do anything like that so much internally, and particularly in learning, we don't have a handle on what our people want, how they like to learn, what their preferences are. It was largely assumption driven. And then that impacts then in terms of return on investment, how you work with stakeholders, what products you might select. So I got the backing off my manager to do something similar in the business, and worked with a partner. And across the group, the EON group, we ran focus groups and then a global survey, which was an extensive survey. It wasn't a short survey, it was very lengthy, and we had over 4,000 responses to it, which was around about 10% of the population.
It's pretty impressive.
So a vast range of data, and it's just
what did it tell you?
Oh gosh, that Google isn't the first place they go to, where we might make that assumption. Everybody Googles things, but they don't. They like to speak with colleagues, to learn off people, to attend meetings. But we do have a very meeting-driven culture. There is a lot of conversations that go on. So I think that was a little bit surprising and also not. And I think the major eye-opener was the perception around 70-20-10. So we asked the question, how many hours a week do you spend learning? And there were only, I think, about 3% that think they're learning all the time. So it's that when you've got that culture, which we have of 70-20-10, it's like, oh my goodness. And also a lot of the comments around your content and what you offer. It's, you've got to be open to someone telling you that your baby's ugly. That's the phrase I learnt from design thinking, from that process as well, is to drop the ego and listen to what your customers are telling you. Yes.
So they were telling you some pretty stark things.
Yes.
So what did you do? What's happened as a result of those insights and that huge data gathering process?
I think that focus on how do we give processes or methods for people to learn from one another, because that's what they like. We found quite a few people said that they valued their internal networks, less externally. There was much more of an internal personal learning network, even some people called it. So it was using methods, bringing in things like reverse mentoring, bringing in working out loud into the business, and experimenting with things that were low cost as well, and getting some feedback on them, and then letting those grow organically in the business, rather than again sort of handing it over to the business, where L&D initially drove it, and also with colleagues in talent as well. That was in a group function.
So this is really important. What you're saying is that you can do things which are actually transformative without spending a fortune.
Yeah.
If you just give people their due, set them free, and do the kinds of things that they find the most helpful, you get this kind of learning explosion.
Yes. Yeah.
So has it been successful? Have you got some real data to show that things are changing?
I think there's more data gathering that needs to happen, but I know for me personally and for some colleagues that have used this data, they've been able to have much more challenging conversations with the business and get the business to take notice that maybe old methods are not going to be the ones that are the best.
Yes,
so I'm finding that people are more willing to experiment and try new things and listen. And with things like reverse mentoring, that's grown, and with the working out loud, that's also grown. But was quite lucky in terms of timing, because our social intranet was launched at the same time, so that was a great way to encourage social learning.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of community management using communities to drive learning through those as well. And I'm finding that a lot of my colleagues that are community managers that are non-learning experts are then starting to curate content in their communities.
Yeah. So it sounds very, very simple, but it's actually a massive leap. Because what you're saying is, we don't just do more of the same, we don't give them more courses, we don't invest more in big expensive stuff, we actually go with people. So we create mentoring opportunities, we curate articles, and basically I guess it's encouraging conversations, so people can learn from each other. And amazingly, they do.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So that's a very important message, I think, for lots of people out there. Sometimes when L&D gets out the way, more happens than when they try and stand in the middle and control the whole thing, orchestrate the whole thing. So if I were listening to this conversation and say, it's interesting, where would you recommend that I start? What is the starting point for this? Is it gathering data? Yes,
I definitely think so, in terms of the questions that we asked and the richness of that data and going back to it, and also the fact that I can compare it by country, I can compare it by job family, I can compare it by age, and really go down into that data. So if a project comes into me that's quite specific, I can go back to that data and look at that population and say, oh, well, they said this and they said that, but then maybe interrogate it a bit further. So what I will recommend is, if a project comes my way and I think, well, we can't just go and take that data at face value, let's have some conversations with those people about it and start to involve the learner as a customer in the things that we do, which is another thing we hadn't done, and I'm starting to shift that. And I find that I'm having conversations much earlier with the business and not later down the line when something's already been decided and there's a problem, or we only want to go this way. So that gives time to think and reflect and look at and tackle things very differently.
So the key message is, get your data and then walk along into the business armed with that data and have some conversations, and essentially treat the learner as a customer.
Yes.
Do what they want, go with their flow, don't try and impose on them stuff that they're not particularly interested in just because you think it's a good idea.
Yes.
It's a really brilliant message, and I think will have an increasingly huge impact on the company, on the business, and create what you want, which is a sticky organisation where people enjoy the working experience. They don't leave too quickly because they're getting something and their job is growing, and you end up with a more successful business at the end of the day. Teresa, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and that's some very useful and interesting insights. Thank you so much for discussing them with me.
Thank you.